kind of the overarching context is I'm going to sort of dive into what I consider to be the blind spot in sports nutrition, and I'm going to weave kind of the blind spot through my comments, as well as sort of distinguish deeper level advantages contained in eating at a different level, at a deeper level, shall we say. And then I'm going to bring on Toni, and she's going to introduce a new partnership with the U.S. Performance Center that is extremely exciting, and I'm gonna let her bring that to life. Here is, I guess, the beginning of the blind spot, if you want to think of it that way. Athletes are apathetic about eating more plant food every day because they don't understand how it produces human performance in their body. If you're not articulating to an athlete how this helps my performance, they generally tend to kind of tune out. And so my comments today are directed directly at athletes, be they the best in the world training for the Paris Olympics in the upcoming year, world champions, Olympic champions, Tour de France athletes, NFL athletes, CrossFitters, I don't care who you are, from the weekend warrior to the high school athlete to the young child, to anyone who's just an athlete in the game of life. But today's comments are really going to be kind of targeted at that elite professional and high-reaching athlete. But the cool thing is those comments that we're going to share, or the information we're going to share, translates to everyone. We just might use kind of the language of athletics. But in the end, the train is leaving the station, or excuse me, it's left the station. We're just trying to help athletes catch up. And interestingly, success leaves clues. Okay. And if you look at the dietary patterns of the greatest of all time athletes, the GOATs, as they mature in their career, they realize that food is a weapon, and they realize that food delivers a competitive advantage. And predominantly, they eat mostly plants across power, skill, aerobic, anaerobic. I don't care what kind of sport, because they understand that there's a deeper level gain to be had in eating effectively. The International Olympic Committee was kind of inundated by other national Olympic committees after kind of this cool, sexy, provocative documentary called The Game Changers movie. And the Olympians and elite athletes from all of the national Olympic committees around the world said, give us more information on the science of plant-based eating. And this is not about becoming a vegan or a vegetarian or a pescatarian or any of those dietary sort of genres, meat eater, this is not about that. Whatever dietary protocol you have, this can be a baseline for you across all of them. And it fundamentally, the premise is more plants equals more performance to deliver deeper level gains to you. And so the athletes are clamoring, and there was a playbook created by the scientists and the Olympians on the science of what plants do inside the human body. And this is some of the stuff that it does. This is the game of gains. These are competitive advantages. I say human performance nutrition is a higher form of sports nutrition because it fuels for physiological performance first. And this is some of, kind of a sneak peek into kind of what lies underneath the hood, if you will. And this is the same for everyone. It's a universal narrative. But for athletes, how that manifests, sports nutrition, what is captivating the sports nutrition world right now in terms of longevity and durability and sustainability in your career. When I was an athlete, I wanted my body to perform like a Ferrari on game day. The 99% of the rest of the time, I wanted it to be like a truck. Work hard, train hard, recover fast, and do it again. And that durability, the adaptive response, the ability to recover strong, physiological durability. This is really where the blind spot kind of kicks in, and in these deeper level advantages. And what great athletes do when they find a better way is they adapt. And we're going to invite you to consider adapting your dietary regimen and your protocol. And this is way beyond macros as a conversation. It's way beyond the multivitamin as a conversation. Food, we're all familiar with the first two pillars of what food does. It builds us, the building materials, the proteins, amino acids, and fatty acids, and it fuels us and gives us energy. These are macro carbs, proteins, fats. It's it's been kind of the conventional wisdom in sports nutrition for as long as I can remember. But the more modern applied science addition to that is really a micro conversation that has no calories, micronutrition. And what does that do? If you want to think of this in terms of an outcome, it conditions function. It conditions physiological fitness. It conditions physiological peak state. And that's where we're after. That's where the gains are occur. So I use this as a metaphor for to kind of unpackage it, but it's also a metaphor for your body, right? The under the level, deep inside you kind of stuff. And it's way beyond vitamins. It's way beyond minerals. Vitamins and minerals are sort of black and white TV and 20th century terms. Science discovers what's easy to discover first, not necessarily what's most important. And what's most important now is understanding the power of the synergy of all of these tens of thousands of molecules and how they interact. It's the greatest biotechnology weapon you have in terms of what you eat, right? It provides just-in-time inventory for all of those molecules to synthesize and synergize and deliver to your body just-in-time effect, if you will. And I call it nature's AI. It's adaptive intelligence. You put all of this biochemistry into your bloodstream, and your body is smart enough to understand and know how to use it and produce an effect. And that effect is a cross-cutting impact across all of your physiology, right? And we're going to unpackage a few little of these things. Please get with the person that invited you to sort of go down the rabbit hole and understand all of the published efficacy around what this plant matter is doing inside your body. And when I say plant matter, we're talking about functional plant food, which I'll come to in a second. But this is, I call this the physiology spectrum. And if you think of it just in terms of kind of a numbered spectrum, your body, 1 to 10, 10 is a peak state and 1 is a poor state, and everything in between. And a lot of athletes are sport fit, but not physiologically fit, or not physiologically at peak state. They might have some organ or some system that's not quite optimized. And you want everything optimized, as I call, you want this performance stack. Modern healthcare tends to get us back to stasis, homeostasis, and health. It's kind of the health care conversation. But what lies beyond the absence of disease, which is kind of an older definition of health, right? It's durable health is what I call it. You want durable health. You want fit physiology. You want peak state, whoever you are. And for elite athletes, this is pretty obvious. We want to condition and train the body. Conditioning of those micronutrients moves that physiology up this spectrum. And so the inconvenient truth, the deeper level advantages are contained in nutrient-dense foods. And the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet are fruits and vegetables. And you can see for the prevention of disease, the recommendation is 5 servings a day. If you're going pro, you're up into double-digit servings a day. And that's the inconvenient truth, where you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm not getting it done. Nutrition is only as good as your execution every day over time, because there's a compounding effect to healthy and great food. It does things for the body over time. This is where the game of gains kicks in. And it is a game, right? You're going to be held accountable by the rules of the game you choose to play. And if you are interested in maximizing your human performance, we would submit, if you're not getting it done, to consider and adapting to a modern aid in functional plant food powders and conditioning every day. So just to kind of kick that off, and then I'm going to bring on Toni, is these are 2 what are called ergogenic aids, ergogenic tools that deliver competitive advantages, let's say. And that's kind of it's a fancy word in athletics, an ergogenic aid, ergogenic advantage. And if you look at these 2 products, the one on the left has all the stuff. It's stacked, 100%, 100%. And then you look at the one on the right, looks pretty paltry, looks pretty pathetic. Now, what's interesting about that is an FDA supplement label, and that's an FDA food label. And this shows sort of the limitation of labels, right? You can't quite know, that there's a lot more stuff going on in that apple than is able to be disclosed on a label, right? And so here is actually what some of the nutrients, some of the phytochemicals, some of these tens of thousands of molecules that provide this synergy. And it doesn't mean much in a day, doesn't mean much in a week, but eat an apple a day and it compound, that compounding effect, that's where that competitive advantage kicks in. And this is a food first approach, right? Versus a not food first approach. And the not food first approach, the poster child of that approach is the multivitamin. It's a cocktail of molecules versus plant powders, plant matter, food first. Let's get more of that into the body and have it compound over time. So our company has stayed in one lane and we're kind of a master in a few lanes, but this particular lane we've been in for 30 years. We're kind of the original gangster, the OG, the GOAT really in this lane. And what we have been able to do is be the best for the world in providing daily plant food support. So if you look at this produce here, how do you remove the water and end up with that matter, as I say that? And this plant matter matters. It is nutrient density. It is not a vitamin pill. You can't see vitamin C and pick it out in here, but it's in synergy in context with the thousands of molecules that make whole food. And the technology that we've implemented is removal of water. And this introduces a category called functional food. It can be, teas, coffees. You take that for a reason, right? Fermented foods, spices, herbs, functional food. The difference between these beets and these beet powders is the removal of water, and that's food technology. And that remaining matter, right, is, imagine that in your body every day over time, and utilizing all kinds of fruits and all kinds of vegetables and all kinds of berries. And more recently, we've been able to harvest and get omegas from plants, right? We've been a pioneer, an innovator, a leader, a best in class around functional food and functional plant powders. And as it turns out, it's safe and it's clean. We say beyond organic. It's kind of a holder for all of these features and benefits. Tony's going to talk about what NSF Sports Certified means. It's safe and it's clean. We're using this with the best athletes in the world, with high-risk pregnancies, with cancer survivors. It's one of the safest and cleanest things you're going to put in your body every day. And so what part of this don't you get is kind of where I start. All of these fruits and vegetables, our relationship with all of these farmers, we're one of the largest buyers of agricultural crops in the world. And what we've been able to do is work with heirloom and traditional third generation farmers to deliver vine ripened produce. And we freeze it, and then we take it to a juicing facility that eviscerates it all. We remove the water in a refrigerated environment, and we're left with plant powders. Now, the thing with plant powders is they're a bit challenging. Now, raspberry plant powders might taste great. What about the cabbage powders? What about the kale powders? What about the beet powders? They can be a little nappy, a little nasty. And so the gig is getting it in your body every day. And our delivery mechanism that we've chosen is to encapsulate this produce in fruit powders, vegetable powders, and berry powders. And it delivers three things. It's a functional effect in terms of providing an oxygen barrier that gives it an oxygen barrier. When you cut food or pick food, oxidation begins to occur, and this gives it a protective barrier, right? The most important thing, though, is it's easy to do every day. And so there's a compliance issue. There's the science, and is there, are you talking the walk or walking the talk? Science, compliance, are you doing what you know every day over time? The encapsulation just makes it easy to do. So the company, Juice Plus Company, fruit and vegetable powders, 30 years, 25 plus years delivering macronutrient shake mixes with plants. And then more recently, harvesting these oils to deliver the family of omega-3, 5, 6, 7, 9 in omegas. And who knew you could go around the middle fish and do it in a more sustainable manner? So this is our game. We're the best in the world at our game. And we have, beyond the sensibility of it, beyond the kind of the smart approach of it, kind of the think different, adaptive approach to it, is we have the prove it part to it. And that's the efficacy, the science, the rigor, the replicated science. And I don't have time to go and take you through 48 studies, but if you're into it, you can get with the person that invited you here and go down the rabbit hole, read all the PubMeds. I'm gonna mention just three and then bring on Tony. Brain performance. I don't know who doesn't want more of that. Get rid of have clarity fast in terms of cognitive processing, memory, attention, speed, processing speed, and that functionality to make strategic decisions. If you're an athlete, we have a published study showing that these plant powders get in the body and do this stuff in your brain. We have published studies showing that this improves and helps the microbiome thrive, gives you a strong microbiome, this plant matter. We also have a study showing cardiovascular capacity. Like, this is performance. Like, I don't know how else to show you performance at kind of a subclinical level. Like, this is going on inside you. Whether or not you feel it doesn't mean that it's not going on. When I first got on these plant powders, I didn't feel it until about a year and a half later. I'm like, wow, there was a compounding effect, right? And I've been on it for 20 plus years now. There's a compounding effect to putting nutrient dense foods into your body every day. This study was published in the Journal of the American of Cardiology. And I think, who doesn't want vessels with capacity, right? And so I call this the performance stack. You want all of these systems, all of these organs and molecules and organelles and all of it stacked up across all of your physiology, so that then you can get on the field of play and get your sports performance to a higher level. So with that, I want to bring on Toni Branner, and she's going to unpackage our new relationship with the U.S. Performance Center. Thanks for joining us, Toni.
Thank you, Jeff. Oh my gosh, isn't that the most amazing presentation? I still get excited. I've had those plant powders in my body for 28 years and been able to give them to my family and my clients and my athletes. And I still wake up every morning just grateful that I have that functional food, gap insurance sitting on my counter and when I travel. So thank you, Jeff, for explaining all of that. I have been working as an exercise physiologist for 40 years now. I started out at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I was there at the same time as Michael Jordan. That tells you how old I am, grandmother now. But that's where, as I was serving as a professor and director of the Wellness Center, I started really looking into research on what is really going on at the cellular level with prevention, with performance. And everything started taking me in the direction of plants, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains, and beans, that we can't have that competitive advantage in life and in athletics unless we are eating enough plants. And that was kind of not the cool thing back then. It was way before its time. People didn't even really know some of the words, definitely not microbiome back then. But I became very passionate about sharing this with my normal clients, with my athletes. My husband is a physician, with him sharing it with his patients. And the difference was amazing. So I have, all of those years of seeing the difference. Well, what we learned is what Jeff mentioned earlier, is that for high performing people, it's very hard to get those daily servings in their body every single day. And so people need a little support. They need a little support, but from real food and functional food support. So David Kerner is a sports trainer who I met 20 years ago, and he had a dream of opening an Olympic level training center. And he also really saw the value of plant powders. His own family had had a health crisis, his son, and that was able to save his son's kidney, actually, to change to a more plant forward diet and to add the plant powders. And so he said, wow, I think my athletes need this too. So we've been using them with his athletes, my athletes, for the last 20 years. He finally was able to, after a lot of not giving up, was able to get the funding to open a global human performance center of excellence in Charlotte, North Carolina. His partner, Ike Belk, and they have already contracted with 15 different teams to train in residence at the Performance Center. And when he received this funding and knew that this was all going to happen, he called me and said, my number one choice has to be all of these athletes have to get the plant powders, the Juice Plus plant powders, and the plant-based omegas and the plant-based shakes. And so we worked to make that happen. And now we are so excited to announce that the United States Performance Center is giving every single athlete the performance protocol to allow deeper level gains along with their innovative training programs. They have patents on new neurological Kaiser equipment that has never been used before to help train the athletes to avoid overtraining, to avoid injury, to recover from injury. And combining that with the state-of-the-art, cutting-edge nutrition support is unbelievable. And we're excited because we know there's no such thing really as overtraining, only under recovery. And even our youth athletes these days, you know, soccer practice when I was a little girl was 30 minutes. Now 2 hours, 3 hours, whole weekend tournaments. Kids are training year round with competitive sports. And my children did sports, they did competitive dance. And I think, you know, they were doing a lot more than the body is really capable of without that optimal nutrition. So what are you thinking about as you're thinking about your competitive advantage? You may be an athlete, or you may be a teacher, or you may be pregnant and you want the best performance throughout your pregnancy, right? But your nutrition plan should check all the boxes. And I like to say you should come at it from two directions. Of course, you need to eat well, whole food, more plant food. And then you need to come at it from this direction with functional food support. In today's world, our food supply has become more toxic. Our food has been radiated. It's, you know, packaged a lot of times. The nutritional density is nowhere near what it was 50 years ago when our grandparents were children, right? And so we have to have help. We have to have support. So Jeff mentioned the research. Reach out so you can really look at this research, because this is what gives you the peace of mind. As an exercise physiologist, I don't want to lean my reputation against something unless I know it's legit, I know it's stable, I know it's long lasting, and I know it works. And Juice Plus plant powders and our entire performance protocol check all of these boxes. I'd like to highlight the oxidative stress just for a minute, because that was my research. And what happens when you exercise is that you breathe oxygen at a higher level than just sitting around doing nothing, right? So you're probably breathing double or triple the amount of oxygen, which is a good thing. But you use that oxygen to create energy in the form of ATP. And that's great too, but there's a leftover, and the leftover is called a free radical or an oxygen species. And the free radicals, actually think of them like little hot BBs. They're kind of bouncing around your body, maybe damaging your proteins, maybe damaging your skin, causing more wrinkling, maybe damaging your macula, so your eyesight might be affected, right? It can really cause damage to every single organ system. And what we need are some superheroes, and the superheroes are called antioxidants. And guess what? Those are those tiny little bioactives, micronutrients that you find in plants. And each color of fruit or vegetable has different antioxidants. And that's why the performance protocol is made up of 30 varieties of plant food, so that every single day you're getting 30 varieties times thousands of antioxidants. Do the math on that, right? Into the body. I've attended conferences where high-level researchers have said the people with the most antioxidants coursing through their vessels live the longest and live the healthiest. So we should be doing everything we can as a normal person and as a high-level elite athlete to get that variety, that diversity of plant food in our body. Looking at the microbiome, same thing. The number one predictor of your gut health, which determines your immune system, your metabolism, and even your cognitive function, because most of your neurotransmitters are made in your gut, right? Depends on the diversity of plants that you consume to be the prebiotic for your gut health. So I get so excited about this. You just want to cut me off, but make sure you reach out and get that research summary from the person that invited you. So we want to revolutionize performance, protection, and recovery with full spectrum micronutrition. We call it the micro advantage from plant powders, omega oils, and shakes. And we call this the Juice Plus Performance Protocol. So what is so amazing is that this is what every one of the athletes at the United States Performance Center, right now it's adding up to about 600 athletes, you will be able to do the same protocol at your gym, to offer it to your soccer team, to offer it to your family, to take this while you're pregnant, to take it to be the best teacher you can be, right? Everyday performance. So we're so excited about this, and it's so affordable for athletes. That is the most amazing thing, and for normal people. Here's some photos. You can see that these are the athletes that are currently training at the United States Performance Center. We've had some really great success stories. Our first two teams were USA Women's Field Hockey and USA Taekwondo. And when they came into the center, they were, not ranked really high in the world. And we're just super happy to say that our Taekwondo athletes just received 6 medals in world competition just a couple of weeks ago. And our field hockey team placed second in the world recently too, just like a week and a half ago. So it is working. It is so amazing. There they are. Aren't they amazing? Absolutely amazing. And I never knew this, but field hockey is in the top 5 in the world for sports. So I think that is so amazing as well. So Jeff mentioned quality control. And so we want to make sure that not only are what we're putting in our body is better than organic, non-GMO, but there's also a lot of other things that can show up even in organic produce like fungus, salmonella, E. coli. So the plant powders, the omegas, and the shakes are all tested for all of those things. That is NSF certification. There's a higher level to that called NSF Certified for Sport, and that tests for over 200 banned substances that athletes cannot have in their body. Now, if you're not an Olympic athlete, but maybe you have a teenager who might play collegiate sports, maybe a pro golfer, maybe, you don't want those things in your body because they can stick around for years. So you have to be so careful and not just buy random supplements off the shelf that don't have this high level quality control that's from an outside agency, an outside organization that tests independently of the company that makes Juice Plus. All right, that was a lot. I get excited. It is time to win. We invite everyone to take part in the performance protocol. We are excited about it. We feel like this is one of the ways that we can turn our sick care world back into a well care world. And that doesn't just mean absence of disease, like Jeff said. That means not surviving. That means actually thriving. We invite you to experience it yourself, to study it, to build your belief, and to help us share. Absolutely. So Jeff, thank you for inviting me. I'll turn it back over to you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone. The game of gains is finding those incremental advantages. And if you put these plant powders in your body every day over time, we know that it does stuff. It does good stuff, it does performance stuff. So get with the person that invited you here today, and beyond the game of games, it's game on and get going. So thank you all. Have a great day. Cheers.